All right, hello everyone. My name is Disc, and in this video we're going to look at a 24 Ruby Life pools. We are Tyrannical, and we're just going to be taking a look at the first boss, Melidrussa. And it's taken me quite a few repetitions to really get the best play of spells here. And I'd be curious to hear what other healer specs think of this fight. I do think it's kind of just hard all around, but as a Disc Priest, you can really get yourself in a lot of trouble if you're not playing your best spells at the best time. I do think it's quite particular, so I wanted to go over the way I do it. And before we get to that, let's flash the talents. I am running Tendrils. I think that's best for Spiteful weeks. Vampiric Embrace is definitely the way to go for Tyrannical. And over on the Disc side, not much is different. However, I am sacrificing Train of Thought for Protector of the Frail these days. I think as we're getting into these higher keys, this is just the best play. It can really mean the difference between life and death for an individual or for a whole group. And I really just think it's the best play for these high keys. And I have a hard time sacrificing my Long Schism, Long Shadow Covenant, but I think you could sacrifice this point for maybe a buffed Radiance if you wanted to. However, with my playstyle and with Binding Heals, I feel like you can atone a group with long atonements fairly quickly, and you get a little bit more out of your spells that way. I only use Radiance for specific moments, so I try not to rely on it too much. I think regular, longer atonements are a little bit better. And then let's take a look at bigwigs for this fight. I always preach whittling down your list as much as possible. You really only want to track attacks that have to do with dodging and timing your spells. And less is definitely more. You want to take as many of these off as possible. And all of these are gray because I have taken off all the messages. I don't think you need messages on your screen at this point in the game. You should know what the spells look like. You should kind of have an idea of when they're coming. You don't need to be reminded of the spell name on your screen. I think it only adds to clutter. So all of these check marks are gray because they're customized. And the only spell I'm tracking the timer of is the Chill Storm. I think that's the kind of the biggest threat. And when it comes to the Awakened Whelps, someone could argue you want to track the timer there. I don't think so. I think it's kind of obvious when it's coming. It's apparent when it's coming. I think you get more out of only tracking one timer. It gives you a little bit more focus on when to time your spells. And the Chill Storm is definitely, I think, the one to track. And for example, the Hail Bombs, there's no reason to see a message. There's no reason to track the timer. All I really want to hear here is the audible. And that's my cue that the spell has cast. So I kind of operate on the system of audibles. I think it's the best way to play WoW, in my opinion. So I have all messages turned off. I'm only tracking the timer of Chillstorm, and I have audibles remaining for these particular spells. So I think that's about it. So let's go ahead and clip over to the play, and we'll talk about more there. All right, so we're about to get going here. I just want to talk a little bit about my theory and my approach here. So the damage profile of Melidrussa, things just happen so quickly. I think the biggest change to my playstyle is I'm not playing Penance on cooldown. I'm spending all of my time atoning the group, banking a Penance proc, and holding it. So I think that's really the best play because with these Chill Storms, we need to get through them without major cooldowns. But our biggest friend here is going to be our Rapture. It is really great for canceling out the Chill Storms, so we want to put it on cooldown ASAP, and we're assigning it to the first one. So I do have a Penance proc loaded, and here goes into my Rapture. It's really best to favor yourself and the DPS with the shields. Most often, it's not going to be best used on the tank. And I had that Penance proc loaded. And then since we are not playing Penance on cooldown, our best friend is going to be our Mind Blast. So we do want to play that on cooldown. And I was targeted for this one. I will always paint up myself if I'm the one targeted. I just don't like that. And here comes our first whelp. You want to bank a 3-stack on Harsh Discipline. You want to have a fresh dot. And I do place Barrier here. So Schism, Mind Blast, Penance, Star, and Quaking made that a little bit tricky. Usually I would work any Radiance to refresh Atonements, but we did not need it. The Hunter was the only one where the Atonement fell off, and I gave him a single. That was all we needed. So I atoned the full group. I have a Penance proc loaded. And Quaking made that a little bit tricky, but a really good play there is to cap yourself with your 4-piece shield right as the Chill Storm is detonating. Really good way to play just a little bit extra defensively. And here we have our second Rapture. It came back available. A little bit dicey there, but a good Rapture overall. It covered the Storm, and I was able to refresh shields after the detonation. So we do not have Barrier for this one. We do not have Vampiric Embrace for this one. So we really want to hover our finger on our wall and or potion. There it was. And you can pick up a 5th Torment off the whelps, but I think it's just a little bit too hectic to worry about that. Yeah. So I atoned the group. I'm favoring my Mind Blast first, so double Mind Blast. Flood the Penance late. Penance can oftentimes go into overhealing, so if you can play it third in a cast sequence rather than first, sometimes a little bit better. Okay, so I'm selected again. I paints up myself late. I had a Penance proc loaded. I fled the Penance proc. And now we want to work in our third and final Mindbender. So we're not expecting another round of whelps, so we can go ahead and drop the Mindbender to cover the storm. Capped myself with a shield before the detonation. And the double execute within my Mindbender was really good for that attack. And that was the boss, pretty clean. So I think you might be tempted to play your Mindbender on the rip of that fight, because the first whelp phase isn't for about a minute, so arguably you have time to fit one, but I don't think that plays your Rapture the best. So I do think it's important to play your Rapture first to get it rolling. I think we saw how getting a second Rapture early in the fight really made a difference. And by the time we get the first Rapture out of the way, we don't have enough time for a Mindbender anymore. So we want to save our Mindbender for the first whelp attack, and I think that's the best play of spells. And I did want to include this guy here. So I am ramping my atonements. I'm ramping for my first Mindbender. And I was targeted, so I wall. I'm already in my ramp, and that is plenty to cover the first attack. I work in a Radiance late, and we are totally covered. And paying attention to the tank here, I shielded him on that tank slam. That's coming from the targeted spell's weak aura. I think he really likes that. And then I go into a Rapture for this next attack. I want my Rapture to overlap the attack, so I work in a Dispel in the middle, and then I refresh shields after the attack, and that is all you need to mitigate those dots. And it's non-fortified, so not as big of a deal, but I think that's just about the same play on a fortified key. And that's just about everything, so thanks for tuning in, everyone, and until next time, Disc.